Hello and welcome to Soros OK, a podcast created to understand, learn, and demystify life in Africa and African lives. Today, we're joined with someone that as soon as I spoke to her, I just knew that I would learn like so much from her. And I think just sparks like flew. And I just knew like I have to speak to you more times. Please help me welcome Maureen. She's a workplace transformation consultant living in the UK. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, Zainab. That is very interesting. Thanks. Really happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation we have. Yeah,
Yeah, honestly, like as soon as like I think the first conversation and we started speaking about politics, etc. And I
yeah,
just knew I think I need to speak to you more times. And we had a session like this before
yeah,
already,
yeah,
and I thought that was really interesting. I need to get your mind and pick your mind a little bit more and understand because I feel like definitely I need people like you to actually speak to rather than people. For example, like myself, who hasn't been in Africa or
yeah,
Nigeria, etc.
yeah.
So thank you for joining again.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're gonna talk about Black diaspora or African diaspora, and a little bit about the topic of why people move, like what pushes people, specifically Africans, to migrate? What are people's expectations? Why they
Mhm.
do it? What's the psychological reason, etc. And
Yeah,
I thought it would be best to speak to someone that has gone through it firsthand to kind of demystify it a little bit for other people that might not have experienced it.
yeah.
So, if you just start with kind of like your introduction about yourself.
Okay. So I think my name is Maureen. And of course I work in consulting. I moved to the UK. I'm Nigerian, so I'm from Nigeria. I was born there. I grew up there. Had my first degree, and worked for a bit, and then I moved to the UK in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. Um, and since then, I came here for my masters. So I did my masters at the University of Southampton, and then I got a job in Manchester, and I moved here. And that is it about me so far. So I've been here as an immigrant in the UK for about 3 years now, and it's been an interesting learning journey, learning experience, and I think I'm starting to kind of settle, make friends, find my people and my own space here. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna definitely delve into your introduction a little bit more.
Hmm.
But I wanted to start with kind of an intro definition of what the Africa diaspora is, just from Googling it. And I want you to kind of explain if you agree, disagree, etc.
Okay.
So if I'm just Googling, it says the African diaspora is the voluntary and involuntary movement of Africans and their descendants to various parts of the world during the modern and pre-modern periods.
Mhm.
So, do you agree with this definition? And also, do you classify yourself as now part of the Black diaspora or African diaspora?
Yeah, I think that's about right. So it's people moving for different reasons. So voluntary reasons, involuntary reasons, and I do think I'm part of the Black diaspora because I've had to move myself as well. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Do you, from that definition, so it says Black diaspora and African diaspora, do you think it's just the one? Or do you think there is a difference between Black diaspora and or African diaspora?
To be honest, I don't think I've like taken my time to think about the concept. I
Hmm.
mean, if we think about it, not all Africans are black. So I don't really know like what the differentiator will be between like African diaspora versus black diaspora, besides the fact that not all Africans are black. Um I don't know. If I were to speak about it, I'll probably use it interchangeably, but knowing
Mm,
that that might not be absolutely correct. But yeah,
okay.
that's my opinion or thoughts around it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Um, Okay, so in your introduction, you mentioned that you've moved after you've worked a little bit in Nigeria, etc., and grew up there.
Mhm.
Can you talk about your childhood a little bit in Nigeria?
Okay, so I was born in Port Harcourt, so I'm from the south side of Nigeria. I'm from Edo State, but my dad, my family, I think they lived in Port Harcourt, so I was born there and I was raised there. And I think I like to think I had an interesting childhood. I lived with a lot of adults, so there were lots of extended family at home. So I had lots of uncles, aunties, and I'm the first child. So I grew up with a lot of adults, and probably one of the reasons why people think I'm too mature for my age. But but yeah, I think that was it. And then I had my siblings, and then I think I started to enjoy some of like the kiddies type of thing. But essentially, I did my pre preschool, nursery, primary, and secondary school in Port Harcourt. I did go to a boarding school. It was still based in Port Harcourt as well. And then when it was time for uni, I then moved to Benin. So Benin is in Edo State, which is where I'm from. So I studied at the University of Benin. So I think I spent most of my life in Port Harcourt, in Nigeria, between Port Harcourt and Benin. However, after graduation, so I don't know if you know, but there's something called the National Youth Service Corps, so where people go to after uni. So it's a national service thing that everyone gets to do. So I went to Abuja. I got posted to Abuja, so I was there for about 2 years before I moved to the UK. So I think that's like the long and short of my growing up and my life in Nigeria. I did travel to a couple other states though, but I think those were the places where I primarily spent my time. I visited Delta State, I went to Oyo State, I went to Lagos. Where else? Maybe not a lot, but yeah, a couple of places. Yeah.
Did you travel in other places in Africa before moving to the UK?
No, actually, so I haven't actually visited any other African country. Yeah, but
Okay.
that's something I'm looking forward to. I think that's my 2025 travel goal. So to visit more African countries. Yeah, then yeah.
Yes, I love that. Okay, fantastic. So that's kind of like your childhood. Now, so can you talk a bit about kind of like the whole point of the kind of like this podcast, why you decided to move, what was kind of like the reasoning behind it, what were some of
Mm-hmm,
the challenges
mm-hmm.
that you faced, etc.
Sure. Well, I think decision to study was it was always to study abroad, to study in the UK precisely, was always something that I had in mind that I knew I was always going to do, even before I think diaspora JAPA as we call it, like even
Mm,
before it became a thing, it was something I always thought I wanted to do. What I wasn't sure of was if I wanted to move here and remain here, or if I wanted to move here and then come back home. But I
mm,
had visited the United Kingdom when I was younger, and I always thought I wanted to come back for my studies here. And again, I think we probably talked about this. So I also feel like when I went to a public federal university in Nigeria, it's a public university, and I always felt like, you know what, I could probably get more out of education than the experience I got. So it was it was something, I always wanted to like learn more, and I wanted to kind of see the world on a global level before deciding what and how I wanted to kind of move ahead with my life. So I think it was always a thing. However, I think getting closer to when I was ready to come for my master's, which was around 2019, 2020, there was the whole thing that happened in Nigeria, the protests, that led to a lot with young people. And then I think it kind of fueled the resolve of so many people who had never considered ever moving or living abroad. Um, and they started to think about it because they clearly like were not happy. So I just happened to have moved around the same time, and then by the time I came here, or when I was moving here, I still wasn't very sure if I was going to move back or if I wanted to stay back. But I think in the course of my masters, the experience I had here, I was like, you know what, I I would go home, but I don't think I want to do that immediately. I think I want to take my time and like explore the UK. I want to work here for a bit. I want to build a career here, and then maybe later on decide whether or not I want to go back home. So yeah, that was how it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one question, like as you were talking, I noticed, like you said, you kind of always wanted to move to study, and I think UK was kind of like at the top list.
Yeah.
Why? Like, was it because like UK was kind of glorified, or you saw like a really good picture of what the UK is? Like,
So that's the thing. I feel like every time people ask me why I chose the UK, I'm never
mm,
able to explain. I don't know
mm,
what it is. Even before we visited, I was like, it was the one country I wanted to go to for no reason in particular. I'm telling you, like there was no explanation. So I don't know what it was, but there was just something about it that I said,
mm,
you know what, as people were aspiring to go to like the US, to go to Canada and
yeah,
all of those places, fine and good. If there was an opportunity to go there, I would go. But
mm,
it wasn't like, it wasn't big for me the way the UK was. And so when I was young and my dad said we're going for holidays to the UK, it was so exciting. Like even
mhm,
without knowing, how much I wanted to be there. And then when I came here, I was like, okay, now I know I like this place and I think I want to come back. I think what the difference was coming here and seeing, you know, systems that work. I know that people who live here clearly have a lot of things to complain about, and so do
mm,
I. Lots of things are not working. But I guess when you place it side by side with where you come from, you appreciate more a lot of systems, that are put in place to make things work, and how, you know the things that you would really do, or the things that processes are made difficult for you at home, you just find them so easy here. And so I guess when I experienced that in a very short 10-day holiday, I was like, you know what, I think I'm definitely coming back here to school. And so that was how I ended up choosing to come to the UK. And it was very interesting because even at the time I was planning to come for my masters, I did get a lot of like pushback. People saying, the UK is not the place to go, especially because the
mm,
migration policies were not particularly friendly at the time. So if you came here and you wanted to stay back, there was always, if you didn't get like a job that could sponsor you, it was always very tricky and you couldn't stay back. But I knew deep down that Canada wasn't for me, the US wasn't for me, it just wasn't where what I was interested in. And so I was like, what, I'll come here. If I don't get a job and I need to come back home, then that's fine. I'll go back home. If I come here and I get a job and I can stay, that's great. I'll stay. So that was how I came here. I can't. I'm never really able to explain why exactly I like the UK. I don't know. And I can't even say it's such a love relationship. I think
yeah.
it's just one other place where I wanted to be or where I wanted to live. Yeah.
Mm. Did you used to watch movies? Maybe like that was UK based, or
Not exactly,
mm,
actually. I can't think of anything. See, that's
that's
it's
so
so it's so it's
interesting.
so strange.
Yeah.
It's so it's so strange. I really can't think of anything. I'm not really sure why exactly that happened or how
Okay.
how it happened. It's just like the UK, and that
Do
was
you
it.
do you have any family here? Like now that you moved? Or?
Yeah, so I do have some extended family here.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I get to see them like every once in a while. Some of them moved a while back, and then some people have moved like maybe within the last 5, 6 years. But my dad actually visited the UK once. Okay, once or twice. I know he was in Aberdeen for a while. Um, but I also don't know that that was what foiled my interest, because he had been to other places too, but I wasn't
Yeah.
interested in those places either. So, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, when coming,
Hmm.
did you, were you, so like, how did you plan it? Because, like, I'm thinking in my head, like, but it's essentially I've lived here for majority of my life, and I
Hmm.
can't fathom kind of going to study in a
Somewhere
whole
else.
other country. Like, how old were you as well
So I
when you,
moved here when I was 22, 23,
wow.
23.
Mm,
And I think because first of all, I'm the first child.
mm,
And I've been raised by parents that have some kind of independent mindset,
yeah.
and they've kind of raised us that way. Um, I wasn't like, I mean, I think I was pampered maybe the first 3 years because I was the only child for that long. And then I think reality caught up with me very quickly because I had like three other siblings, and it meant that, I had to be looking out for them. It wasn't like I was fully responsible for them. Like,
Mm.
my parents were very hands-on and present, and again, I had like aunties and uncles, but there was a sense of responsibility that came with having younger siblings, like going to school, making sure that I could pick them up and wait together for my parents to come. It was all those kind of things. So I think I was growing up in that sense. And then when I had to go to secondary school, I went to boarding house, and as much as it was in the same city, but I was away from my parents for like a couple of weeks, and then going back home, during the holidays. And I think all of that just made me get used to the fact that, okay, I'm not always going to be at home. Like, this is my life. And then when I had to go to uni as well, I moved to a different city. So Benin is about 4 hours away from Port Harcourt. And I precisely did not want to go to a school in Port Harcourt because I wanted to experience a different city. And I think it also comes from my thinking about, being able to explore other places. And I think that's something I've always wanted. I will caveat though that I'm not the kind of person that likes to move from place to place. 'Cause I really like to be in a place for a relatively long time, establish my friends. I try very well with community. So having my friends, family around, and that's not something that you do very well when you have to be moving every now and then. So I think, but wanting to explore like other cities, and so that was what informed my decision to go to Benin to school, and why I also wanted to do my NYC in a different state than where I grew up. And so it was like all of these things, and maybe because in my head I had always known that I was going to go to the UK, so it wasn't really a problem to me. Like, I didn't think of it as such a big thing. But I can see where you're coming from, and I think I also had that concern from people about, like, are you not worried? Like, why are you just going somewhere? And worse still, I was coming in the pandemic when things were
Yeah.
not even properly open, so it was really crazy. And I could sense some fear in my dad, saying, what, he wanted to come with me when I was coming, but it didn't make sense because, first of all, you still had to do like the quarantine. I was like, where are you going to stay? Like, is just an expensive trip that I don't think is worth it. As long as I had the support from my school, I had got all the information I needed. I knew who needed to pick me from the airport. I knew where I was going to stay. I was going to stay in the school accommodation. So I was like, you know what, I'll be fine. Well, having said that, I'm not going to pretend like it was the easiest thing, or like, I just got by. It was really tough. It was quite difficult. I think with every other move I had, I was always within Nigeria. I was always within like the safety of home. I could easily like
Mm.
run back home. They could easily
Mm.
visit me. But with this one, it was a lot more different. I was having to interact with people who did not speak like me, people
Mm.
who did not look like me, and you then have to deal with all the systemic things as well. And it wasn't quite the easiest, but I think it's something that I had always mentally prepared for, and so that kind of got me through it. Yeah.
Mm. So yeah, you've touched on kind of like important point as like someone that was kind of born in the Western countries. You hear your family have moved to get a better life for you, etc., and you hear about their struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's so far off with like parents or the parents' generation. But it's interesting to see, does it still happen now to people that are just moving, and kind of what their experience is. So, like as I was saying, like I couldn't fathom going to live in a completely different country. But not only that, but the country is got a whole different culture, people,
Yeah.
and you look completely different to the people
Yeah.
that live here. So
Yeah.
yeah, how did you talked about that a little bit, like it was a struggle, but how did
Mhm.
you, like what were some of the psychological kind of like struggles in it, like
And Um, I think, I guess when I moved here, I probably had been pre-informed about, okay, this is what's going to happen. Not everybody looks like you. Not everyone is going to
mm,
like you. You're going to experience something called racism for the first
mm,
time, and there's all of that. So I think I came here knowing to expect that. However,
mm,
not really understanding the depth of what that could look like. I got here. I think one thing that helped was I moved in. I had flatmates that were Asian.
mm,
So I had three Chinese flatmates and one Thai. So five of us. We all had like our rooms, but we used to come to the kitchen together. And in speaking to them, I started to realize, you know what, you guys, I feel like we share similar cultures. When I talk about where I come from, and when you talk about where you come from, it was very easy to relate. We would cook together, would eat together, and they were like my safe space because I wasn't going into the classrooms really. I was learning from my room. So they were
Mm,
like my people, like they were literally all I had like while I was there. And you couldn't really go to see people. The people I knew in the UK were all in like many different cities. My family members who were here were not in Southampton. So if I had to see them, then I had to travel. And there were lots of restrictions at the
mm,
initial stage. So having them, I think made me feel safe. I was like, you know what, it can't be that bad. If I've met these people who are like super nice, really friendly, I can really connect with them, then it's probably not as bad as I think. And I think I started to operate from that like mentality and thinking. However, they were like, different experiences that will make because even they would experience like something
mm,
similar to myself. So there used to be these things every now and then. And I don't know what else helped me. So when things started to open up, I was very intentional about really trying to meet people. There was a Nigerian society, not a very thriving one. I think it was falling apart
mm,
while I was at the university then. And then I met this Nigerian family. So a woman who was doing a PhD and she had like her kids there. So they became like my safe place as well.
mm,
Her daughter used to make my hair, so that's where I used to get my braids done. So I'll end up, being with them, and then when they had celebrations, I'll go celebrate with them. So I think, and speaking with someone who had been there, who had gone through the experience, it meant that I always had someone I could ask questions. So when things got like difficult, or when I wasn't sure of things, I always had like that safe place, that safe space that I could go to and talk about whatever it is I was experiencing. And I I I don't know. I probably wasn't as intentional, thinking about these things. I just know that somehow I was getting through, I was getting by. And maybe it's a Nigerian in me, but I like to think I'm somewhat a resilient person.
mm,
So even when like, you have like those very funny situations where people treat
mm,
you funny. I get really pissed in the moment and then I like shake it off very quickly. I
mm,
tried very hard to not live with that victim mentality of thinking that
mm,
everything and anything that anybody was doing was targeted at me because I look a certain way. I know I was not ignorant of the reality that that was the case, but I think it was consciously trying to tell myself that I can't always be operating in that headspace, because you then even victimize yourself even when no one is doing that. That's what
mm,
happens when you're constantly like in that space. So sometimes I just get over things, and I try to also separate people's actions from who they are or the color of their skin. And I know that if I've met a nasty person, that that's just who they are. Even if they were like me, they probably would be the same. And if I've met someone who's really good, they're just good for that's who they are. Because I did meet people who were good, white, black, Asian, people who were good and people who were bad. So I always took it to be the character of the person. I think that
mm,
was something that helped me, as opposed to saying they've done this because I'm a certain way and they're a certain way. I just thought about it as, meeting one more person who had like a bad character that I needed to avoid. So
mm,
I think that was I guess that's something that helped me kind of navigate all of those things in some ways. Yeah, and I'm still
mm,
navigating, obviously. But yeah.
mm. Do you, this might sound like a bit of an odd question, but do you
Hmm.
feel like Nigeria owes you something for, do you feel like you had to move because of the system there? So now the things that you've gone through,
Hmm.
had Nigeria had the things that you were looking for, you wouldn't have had to move. So do you feel like Nigeria as a country or as a people community owes you?
Personally, so I can think of this in two ways, or I can answer it in two ways.
Mm,
Personally, I don't think I think Nigeria owes it to me as a person, to create opportunities for me to thrive. I'm someone who has
mm,
been born into this country. As a country, it'd be good to create that opportunity for me as a young person to find ways to grow, to harness my talent. But I always say that even if Nigeria was perfectly great,
Mm.
working well, working as good as the UK, I probably would still want to go somewhere else
Oh.
and live for a while. Because I think
Mm.
that's something I would have done. So it's working
Mm.
well. I think I would want to travel and just experience life somewhere else. Maybe not trying to stay there for a long time and wanting to
Mm.
come back home almost immediately, but I think it's something I would have done. Collectively, I think thinking about it as a community, I do think Nigeria owes us because people have had to
Mm.
do things they would ordinarily not do. Not everyone would want, not everyone, people just want to be at home. They just want to
Mm.
be in Nigeria. And due to, things beyond their control, they've just realized, what, if I'm here, I probably won't do all the things that I know I can possibly do. So I need to up and move. So, and I think that's very unfair to us.
Mm.
And I think that Nigeria owes us that, that opportunity, just that safety to actually just be who we need to be. It's not even, it doesn't even have to be too much. Can we just have like the basic things? Like, can we just have, can we just have light? Can we just have, systems that work so that when I want to build my dreams, when I want to live my life, these are not the things holding me back. That's what I think Nigeria owes us. And
Mm.
when you think about it, it's also very funny because then who is Nigeria? It's all of us.
Mm.
So,
That's a really good point to follow on my next question. You mentioned earlier about the JAPA movement. For
mhm,
people that are listening and don't know, it's essentially when Black Nigerians, is a term Nigerians use to say they're basically moving
yeah,
and
yeah,
going to essentially a Western country
mhm,
most of the time. So this is a quote from Why Africa is Poor. It's a book
okay,
by Greg Mills. And now, in a bit of the book, I'm just going to read it and then we can kind of discuss it. So it says, it shows a graph at the top. And then it says, this is related to migration patterns of skilled Africans. By 2000, some 4.5 million of the OECD's migration, so that's,
economic.
migrations were from Africa, including 1.4 million with high skills.
Mhm,
About three quarters of all Africans choose to go to European countries.
mhm,
And then it says, in absolute numbers, the biggest countries lose the most people: South
mhm,
Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, and Morocco.
mhm,
But in relative terms, as a proportion of the education labor force, small countries are worse affected. So
mhm.
then this goes on to my question. I've also heard people say that Africa, especially Nigeria, is suffering from a brain drain, which is essentially when skills people move. So now you at the end of your what you just said, you said that um who is in Nigeria? We are Nigeria. So that leads to my question of, do you think that the brain drain, quote unquote, is actually why Nigeria's infrastructure might not be improving? Do you think it's because of the JAPA movement?
Oh well, I don't have, I don't have facts and figures.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Um, if I had to say, in my opinion, I would say that's one. That's probably one of the reasons. So
Hmm.
it's one of the many reasons why, you know maybe things are not working, because it's not because the people who are still at home are not like the smartest, but there's something in collective wisdom and in collective work, that a lot of times the people who are, really passionate, really smart, really intelligent, people who really want to drive things not just for personal benefits but for like the common good of people or common good of whatever society or community they live in, have often not had the opportunity or the platform, or they've not been given the support they need just to do what, their passion has driven them to do. And so that then results in people wanting to leave. And when you have one person leaves, the second person leaves, the third
Hmm.
person leaves, and then you just realize there's a vacuum in that place. In
Hmm.
and maybe if I just want to use like an example. So think about it as a community now where there's probably no no light or no electricity, and someone has come up with this like great idea on how they can harness the water power in the river or the
Mhm.
stream close to them to kind of generate electricity.
Mhm.
But you can't just do that as an individual. You then need to go through like the government. You need to get through like all the relevant licenses and, get all of those things done. That person goes to, this is just a scenario of what it could be, what it has been, and the stories that I've heard. So that person then goes to the power holding company to kind of get all the relevant licenses, all the relevant support, and people there then tell you, we can't attend to this today, we can't do this tomorrow, you need to get this approval, you need to pay this money, you need to go through this process. And then as a person, you just think, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this
Mhm.
because if we have lights, I don't know, things are going to work better. People who are going to spend less cost on running their businesses, and everyone is going to benefit, even the government, because then people pay more taxes because they are doing more things, they can expand. So why then would you be frustrating me just to get something like this done? And then what
Mhm.
happens is that person gets frustrated. And imagine someone like that applying, or writing the story of what they've done and applying for one, amazing scholarship somewhere in Europe, somewhere in the US, and US, seeing this talent and they just pick them. And what then
Mhm.
happens is they start to use them, they start to, these people are intelligent, obviously. They've seen an opportunity where they can make impact in these other environments they've moved to, and they do it with ease, with people encouraging them, with people applauding them.
Mhm.
And that's what happens is that whole beautiful, great idea that was going to come out of that community, not
Mhm.
because someone else is never going to think about it, but knowing the story that has gone for the person who tried to do it, you really think anybody else is going to try?
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that's how it all goes, and that's just one thing. And then you think of the many other areas, many other sectors, industries, opportunities that these things would have happened, and people experience these things, and so they go. So in the grand scheme of things, nobody is doing anything, or the people who even still are in Nigeria and have the capacity to do these things are not encouraged to do it because they know what has happened to people who tried to do these things. And I guess that's like the brain drain side of, why things are not working. But again, if you still take back all of these people, for some reason,
Mhm.
we have like a return back to Nigeria,
Yeah.
JAPA from JAPA, and everybody goes
Mhm.
back home. If they don't have this enabling environment,
Mhm.
they still can't do anything. You would have all the intelligence there, you would have all the know-how, you would have all the super skills. But if you don't give them the enabling environment to do what they need to do,
Mhm.
they still can't do anything. So I won't particularly say that brain drain is the key reason. It's just is something there's something else that's at the root cause of it, and then that has
Mhm.
resulted in brain drain. But essentially, a lot of these things are not working because some enabling environments are not letting the people who can do these things do what they need to do. Yeah,
Mm,
I don't know if that
that's a
makes
really good
sense.
point.
Mm.
Yes, thank you so much. That was super, super insightful. I've definitely learned a lot. Do you have any last points that you wanted to say to round up,
What do
or
I want
any
to
points that
say?
you?
I mean, I think I just appreciate that you have this podcast that's like really giving people insights to what the actual problems or what the
Mm,
real issues are in Nigeria. Because you'd read like lots of things on the news. Some of them are true, some of them are not true. People are going to write books, they're going to write it from their perspective.
mhm,
Sometimes well informed and sometimes very short sighted. So
mm,
I think what really helps is, having these real honest conversations with people who have gone through the experience, people who have lived there. And I don't know what that's going to do eventually because we've been speaking for a really long time,
mm,
and everybody keeps talking and everybody keeps
yeah.
talking and everybody keeps
And
telling
there's
a
no
story.
action.
Yes,
Mm,
exactly. So I'm hoping that somehow, somewhere, all of these momentum will be
mm,
pulled together to drive like relevant, sensible action that propels us in the right direction. I don't know.
hopefully,
I'm looking
yeah.
forward to that
Me too.
as
Me
well.
too. Honestly, I'm super excited about this podcast and just reaching out to people and hearing their story like yours. I'm just super like interested in just to know, like on speak to someone that has got a different background and and
Yeah.
got experience and
Yeah.
learn from them,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you
And
very
I
much.
think it's also good to kind of, so I think of myself as one of the new diaspora. So I came here,
Mm,
just a few years ago. There are people
yeah,
who there was an era where this happened a lot as well, and I'm so sure there's like a different story behind what had informed those movements at the time. So people who have been here, say 10, 12, 15 years,
yeah.
there's a whole like different story, but it's like hearing the uniqueness and being able to connect the dots as to the
Mm-hmm.
issue. But yeah,
Yeah, my
that's
parents are obviously a lot older than you. However,
hmm
the underlying issue as to why they moved might actually be somehow similar to
similar.
yours, which is kind of sad because your generations apart,
Yeah,
but somehow you're still
same problem.
connected,
Yeah,
and you've had to do the same thing. So yeah, but yeah, it's definitely nice to speak about that and hear what people's reasons,
great.
etc.
Thank you,
Um,
Zainab.
Thank you. Just to round that up, have you been following AFCON?
Yes. Oh, well, I
Any
haven't watched it
predictions?
because work has been intense, but I've definitely been keeping up with the scores. And,
Yeah,
of course, the best day was on Wednesday. So,
yeah,
yeah, it has been interesting, but I'm definitely seeing tomorrow. So I'm going to my friends
yeah.
and we're watching the finals tomorrow together.
Oh, okay. Any predictions? We'll just pray
I don't
that
have
they
the
win.
prediction. I just know we're gonna win. That's all my
Y-
prediction.
y-
However we do that, I don't quite care. I just
Yeah,
want us to win.
fair
I'm
enough.
really rooting for us. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. It's been an interesting one.
yeah,
I watched the last AFCON Nigeria one in
mm,
2013. I watched it with
yeah.
my classmate. It was very interesting. So I hope that this time when I'm ready to watch them again, they make me proud.
Well, that's awkward. Ivory Coast won, but we're not sore losers. We can still say congratulations. We're still very proud of the Nigerian team and they've done really well to get this far. So, big congratulations. I would also like to say a big thank you to Maureen for being my guest today and for speaking to us about her experience and just being a very great guest. Sorosoke is an independent production produced and edited by yours truly. Find us wherever you find your pods. Please like, comment, and share. It really helps. I have been Zainab. Thank you very much for listening.